Good evening and welcome to the March 16th regular board meeting. If you will all please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Oh, I did this. Sit and then stand. 1 second, sorry. Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll, please?
Here.
I did the same thing last month, I think. Now we can all stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Thanks. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States. Is there a motion to approve minutes from the February 2nd board workshop meeting, the February 6th special board meeting, February 14th Finance and Facility Committee meeting, and the February 16th regular board meeting?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Horn. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Manley. Any changes to the minutes at all? Any corrections? Okay, Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Pickle-Antonio?
Yes.
Mrs. Mooring? Yes. Mrs. Coates?
Yes.
Mrs. Horn?
Yes.
Mr. Manley?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. We are going to start with the best part of our agenda, which is the recognition part of our agenda. And first, I would like to call up some of our GLHS art teachers. I think we've got Mrs. I back there. Is Ms. Lawson here? Ms. Langenskamp and Mr. Scanlon. If you would come over to the podium, and then I think we've got a number of students here tonight that we are going to recognize. I will let you all introduce the students up if that's okay. I'm not sure who's here and who's not here. I don't want to call out a name if they're not here. So.
And I teach art at the high school. I have three of my colleagues here with us this evening. We have six total, but all of us were teachers that have students that have won an award that we're very excited to celebrate tonight. So tonight we're going to talk about the Scholastic Art and Writing Awards. They were founded in 1923, and for nearly a century they have inspired bold ideas and creative teens throughout the country. And you can explore more about them on the Scholastic Awards at www.artandwriting.org to learn more about it. Formal notable award winners include Frances Farmer, John Lithgow, Zach Posen, Stephen King, Joyce Carol Oates, Sylvia Plath, Robert Redford, Alan Arkin, John Updike, Andy Warhol, Truman Capote, and Ezra Jack Keats, just to name a few. So we're very excited to have some students that are joining the ranks of those famous people. They have several different levels. We have regional winners, and all entries are considered for Gold Key, Silver Key, Honorable Mention, American Voices nominee, and American Visions nominee. These are presented to students along with celebration ceremonies and exhibitions in each region, and our regional exhibition was held at CCAD. We're excited that we had 9 students this year who created 24 pieces of artwork that were selected for awards. 5 pieces received Honorable Mention, 7 received Silver Key, and 7 pieces received Gold Keys. 1 piece received the American Visions Nominee Award, which is the first time we've ever had any student receive that award. The students who received Honorable Mention are Quinn Smith and Helen Wood. Our Silver Key recipients are Josh Grieco, Ella Wise, Kayla Patman, and Nadia Damatbem. Our notable gold medal winners are senior Nadia Damatbem, junior Drew Pearson, sophomore Kaylin Skiles, and freshman Akil Rao. Akil was also the recipient of the American Visions Nominee Award. We're so proud of their work. Can we please give them a round of applause?
Hello, my My name is Ashley Lawson. I'm also one of the art teachers. All the gold key entries are automatically considered for national awards, including the gold medal, silver medal with distinction, and the silver medal, and as well as scholarship awards. We should find out if any of our gold medal key winners that you're going to see here tonight qualified for that national award. We should find out tomorrow. So hopefully we'll have some good news for you, but who knows. A list of all the national medalists is published on the website each spring, as well as a digital gallery of selected winners.
Each regional program has nominated 5 teens for the American Voices Award or American Visions Award. Nominees must have a gold key work with an original, authentic voice or vision. The process for nominating teens may differ from region to region. Jurors may consider many factors that combine the recognition of talent and the representation of diverse mediums, viewpoints, and backgrounds. National jurors will select 1 nominee from each region for the American Voices or Visions Award. Our American Voices and Visions Award recipient for our region is 9th grader Akil Rao.
Scholastic honors hundreds of students and their educators with a star-studded ceremony in New York City. Recent special guests include Oprah Winfrey, Tim Gunn, Sonia Manzano, Titus Burgess, Amy Schumer, Billy Collins, Whoopi Goldberg, and Sarah Jessica Parker. Highlights from previous years and full-length videos of the most recent ceremonies are available to watch online.
In addition to the Scholastic, we also recently found out that we have 20 pieces of artwork that were created by 12 different artists who were selected for Region 1 of Ohio Governor's Youth Exhibit. Of those 19 pieces of artwork, 5 were selected for the state exhibit. The artists who have artwork on display at the regional level are Charlotte Emig, Eva Razik, Dempsey Havlin, Helen Wood, Kaylin Skiles, Nadia Dematbem, and Ella Wise. Our exhibition will be held at the McConnell Arts Center in Worthington from March 23rd through April 29th, so we hope some of you can make it to that. Chosen to go on to represent GLHS at the state level for the Rhodes Tower exhibit are Finn Johnson, Josh Grieco, Eva Rezik, Camille Shirey, and again, Akil Rao. Akil's painting was also selected as one of the top 25 pieces for the state and will be on display in the governor's office. Today we have our Gold Key winners for the Scholastic Art and Writing Competition to tell you a little bit about their work. It is unusual that the 4 students are all from each different grade levels. We have a senior, a junior, a sophomore, and freshman, but it's just a coincidence that that's happened. Usually freshmen don't receive these awards, so we're very proud of Akil's work. But tonight we'd like to invite each of the students to come up and talk about their work, which we will be reflecting up there. And first we'd like to invite Nadia Dematbem. They're just going to talk a little bit about their process and some of their thoughts behind the work that they created.
This is my print blooming. So we took a lino cut and I basically carved it to create this woman. To me, it represents Black beauty and the kind of blooming essence of it in our society. But yeah, I'm very grateful for the award.
Next, we have our junior, Drew Pearson.
So I took a lot of inspiration from the street art and graffiti that I'd see all the time growing up around where I lived. And that really inspired me to make a piece on what it feels like to live in a city. And I always thought Columbus was a very vibrant yet busy city. And yeah, very grateful for the award. Thank you.
And the first piece was created in printmaking class, and then Drew created this piece in computer art 2? Computer art 2. Then we have our sophomore, Kaylin Skiles.
Hello. This This is a painting I did of my sister eating a baguette. So it was in painting class, and we were given an option to paint anything we wanted, and I like to paint based off of good memories or just like photographs that I have taken. I like to do original pieces, and this was from our vacation last year, and I wanted to paint a portrait of my sister, and I'm very grateful that it's been recognized.
And lastly, we have our freshman, Akil Rao.
Hi. So with this piece, it's on paper, and so it's a mixed media portrait, so it's with paint and colored pencils. And so I do like a layer of paint and then pencil. And this piece is about, like trying to keep it together, like the hands try to mimic like outside pressures and stuff. So yeah, very grateful for the award.
Are there any questions about anything that the students have presented, or? No.
I have a feeling we are going to see work from these artists in the future, and I know I speak on behalf of our administrators and our board in showing our appreciation to these students and their gifts, and also to our teachers who draw their gifts out from them. Thank you for all of your efforts. This is a busy season for you. I hate to ask the students to come back up, but may we show our gratitude to you by having you come back up so we may shake your hand and give you a paw pin.
This is the largest number of awards that we've received in quite a number of years, so we're very, very proud of the students this year. Very excited to have them here tonight. We also have, lastly, our big art show is coming up from April 17th through the 21st here in Clark Hall. I believe it's on the second floor. It will occupy most of the second floor common area and the hallways featuring the senior work. So if you could please try to mark that on your calendar. April 18th will be our reception, where the public will be invited from 6:30 to 8 to celebrate with us and with the students. And we will have a lot of really beautiful artwork, including some of the pieces that you've seen tonight if we get them back from the show by then. But more work to follow, so we'll have a lot of beautiful things on display. And very excited for the year that we're having this year. So thank you again for having us.
I think we've got one question. Sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mrs. Coates.
Can you repeat the March 23rd at the McConnell Art Center, the time for
Yes.
that one?
Oh. Yes, on the McConnell, I do not know the time for that one.
Was it more just stop in the center?
March 23rd through April 29th. But yeah, and then everything will be held, thank you for finding that.
The reception is going to be April 29th for the community and the award winners. And then at the end of that show, they are able to take their work with them. So April 29th will be the absolute last day to see that. But I'm assuming it's open to the public for the entire time. But like the award ceremony and such will be April 29th.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you so much.
And I think if you want to come and see the artwork here on display at Clark, you can stop in the front and ask for permission to come into the building, but I'm not positive how that works. So April 18th would be your best bet to come to that.
And as far as the governor's show, that is at the McConnell Arts Center, govart.org is their website, govart.org. You can get all the information there, and you can also see all the winners from previous years. You can click on, see everything there is.
Thank you so much, and please let us know the results tomorrow.
Okay, will do. Thank you so much for having us this evening.
Thank you very much.
Trace.
You all don't know that artwork is attached on our agenda, so if you yeah, you can see it. Yes, it is. Okay, so we're going to celebrate students from our indoor boys track and field team, and Coach Johnston, I think, is here? No.
Whitaker, are you able to come up and? Okay, thank you.
Sorry. We're going to make you do double, Coach Whitaker. Thank you. We're going to ask you to do double. I'm not going to make you do anything at all.
Well, I think that a couple of days were given to him. They may have chosen the next date, so because I don't see any of them here.
Oh, okay. Okay. So
But I do
then
have some girls here.
we can talk about
So
the girls.
there you go. For one thing, I really appreciate you guys inviting us here to kind of recognize us. And, we're right in the midst of a season. It's in between indoor and outdoor right now. And, as a lot of you know or may not know, we were the outdoor champions, OHSAA champions last spring. And a lot of times, because school lets out, the students don't get a chance to see that and recognize that and celebrate with us. So I really want to, tell everybody that we appreciate all the support we got last June at Ohio Stadium when school was out for a couple of weeks. But the fan support was amazing. It is, the last couple of years we've done so well that it's almost like a home meet for us. When Gahanna is up there and they announce us as the champions, there is just such a great response. So I know I appreciate that. And so we did that, and then what happens in track is that OHSAA has the outdoor season, and OAT CCC, another organization, has the indoor season. So we had a group of girls. We had a small group of about 10 girls who we decided, hey, let's get some training, let's do our indoor thing, and they got better and better. I figure we had a good team, coming into indoor anyway, and we went to that indoor meet, and it was supposed to be a pretty close meet, but our girls really just did an outstanding job. We ended up winning the meet, probably a record number of points, 62 points. We had 6 gold medals, that's hard to fathom that you can get that. That's like a team, winning 6 events at the NCAA championships. And that was just crazy, but we had a lot of fan support there. And so we've got some of our girls here. We don't have everybody, but we have some of them. But I wanted to recognize them. As I look back, our first girl, and I want them to stand up. I want them to come up here with me, yes. And that's Danielle Carter. Come on up, Danielle. Danielle was a hurdler for us, and she qualified to the state, her first time qualifying to a state meet. She's a junior, so she'll be back again next year. She not only will be going for our outdoor season, but she's got another year left. Another junior we have is Keena Sanders. You can come up, Keena. Keena was a member of both of our state championship relay teams. She was a member of she was the anchor girl, which a lot of times people look at the anchor girl as that's the last one, you got to get it done. She's the anchor girl on our 4x200 meter relay team, and to put in perspective how good these girls are and how fast they run, we ran a state meet record time of 1:38.8 81. And some of you will say, well, what does that mean? Well, what that means is that it's the 5th fastest time in America. That's what that means. So incredible. Keena also anchored our 4x4. We were state champions there too. We ran 3:55. Our next person we have is Ameren Chilton, if she can come on up. Ameren ran on that 138 All-American team because they got the status of All-American by doing that. If you run in the top 10 at the end of the season, you're All-American. Another thing that Ameren did was that she won an individual event. She won the 400-meter dash, which she won in a school record time of 56.51, and she came into that event only having run 58.08. So she really turned it up, and it was a close race because she ran 56.51. The girl who came in second ran 56.52. That's 1/100th of a second. So pretty much at the end, Ameren just leaned a little bit more. She wanted a little bit more, but if you know Ameren, that's her. Determination, guts, everything. So it was a lot of fun. Our last member that is here right now is Deja Decree. Coming up, Deja. Now, the distinction with Deja is that Deja is a double gold medal winner. She won the long jump at 18.7, and she won the triple jump at 37.7. And the thing about that, and the thing why I love this crew so much is, and Deja's a senior, I'm going to lose her, but we still got that outdoor season, is that these girls' determination is just unbelievable. Deja had only been jumping 36 a couple of times, and then we had a girl jump 37.7, and I told Deja about that, and Deja was kind of like, okay, I know what I got to do. So Deja went out and jumped 37.7.50. Unreal. That's determination. That's understanding the job that needs to be done. Deja's a captain. Keena's a captain. Ameren's a captain. These are leaders. Not only are they athletic leaders, they're student leaders in the classroom. Their grade point averages are all well above 3.7, probably some of them are 4.0. Just unbelievable because they're all academic, all Ohio. Very proud of them. And this is just the midway point, so hopefully in June we'll be there again, and we'll see how it goes. Health plays a big factor in everything, but I think that I'm feeling pretty good about what's going to happen in June. So there they are, state champions.
Amazing. Thank you all for being here with us tonight. You are all more than welcome to stay, and also you are more than welcome to go. I know it is a really busy time of year. So we do not have boys track tonight. Okay, so I'm going to move on to our student council president, Blake Briel.
Hello, everybody. So this past month has marked the beginning phases of several big events that we're going to plan for the end of the year. The most notable, of course, is prom, which we can officially begin preparing for because we finally found a venue. Though I won't share any of those details quite yet because the financial and logistical sides haven't quite been settled as of yet. So as we learned, if it's not all done, it's not on paper, so I'm going to wait until it's all figured out. However, prom is completely planned and executed by the juniors and student council. So I'm interested to see where they take everything and how that differs from my class when we did it. Personally, aside from prom, my focus has been with the interviews for student council members for the next school year, which I am very happy to be on the other side of the table for, getting to ask the questions. The rest of the high school student council have been preparing for a series of kind gestures and a large luncheon to take place of Teacher Appreciation Week at the beginning of May. We want to highlight the extreme gratitude the student body has for the hardworking staff in our building and put on a big event in order to show them very directly how we appreciate them. Others are also planning a senior send-off event at the end of the year to take place of the senior sunrise that we had on the football field last year. Obviously, we don't have a football field this year, so we're trying to figure out where can host that many students, but there was a meeting with Mrs. Williams today, and I'm going to go over the notes from that and see exactly what's possible and what is not. However, just about all of this is in the early stages of planning, and there are many logistical hoops we still have to jump through, so hopefully next time I'm up here I can report some great successes we have made and taking steps towards these events. In non-student council news, this past Monday I was lucky enough to be part of a paperclip counting event in a high school's cafeteria annex that included members of the GLHS Key Club, Gahanna Kiwanis, and members of our school board here before me today. Thanks to the hard work of the Key Club president, Jocelyn Balluman, and the high school's World War II teacher and Key Club advisor, Miss Jen Kander, the event was a major success and helped a tremendous amount in furthering the message the project exemplifies. Over the course of 2 hours, we had the goal of counting 28,000 paperclips in order to put the total over 2 million counted, as another step towards a representation of the 6 million Jews that were horrifically lost during the Holocaust. We easily conquered this goal with a total of 49,129 counted towards the project, getting well over the 2 million mark. We have also been able to raise a substantial amount of money for the construction of the actual statue and should be able to proudly display it in our district much sooner than originally thought. All in all, I want to see all of these events come as a success and can't wait to be up here and report on it again. Thank you.
Blake, so I remember when we were doing the superintendent search, you asked some pretty tough questions. So I just want to say I feel bad for these incoming student council.
I already had a couple people who already have been here, and they're like, as soon as I go back in the room, all they talk about is Blake just staring me dead in the eyes. And like Jocelyn or the other seniors are like all fun and inviting, but I'm just give it to them. I'm like, if you're gonna be on student council, you got to be ready.
That's good practice. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Blake. Next, we've got Mrs. Stanforth here for Gahanna Jefferson Education Association.
I'm going to try not to break the mic this time. I thought about bringing a stool. I'm not even going to do it. Thanks. There we go. How about that? I do this all day long. Even fifth graders are taller than I am. So reporting for GJEA, it's been a busy time. As everybody knows, at the end of that year, you're getting ready for all those things at the end of the year. And we're really getting ready for the scholarship award that we do at the end of the year. Doing those last bits, we've just collected our last scholarships applications, getting ready to hand out the 3 scholarships that we do every year, getting the last of the money of all the fundraisers we've done. Various buildings will do their own individual scholarship fundraisers, but we also do some larger ones, like we did bundt cakes and things of that nature this year. We're also accepting applications for our Friend of Education Award winners and our GJEA Hall of Fame nominations. We award all of those, our scholarships, the Hall of Fame, and our Friend of Education, and the retirement banquet that we held in May. So that's a really great time. It's always nice to hear the retirees reflect back on their years of teaching. It's usually a little bit of tears and a lot of great stories about all the things about when they first started teaching compared to how things are now. Also, some of our executive board, Dwayne Marshall and Ed Thomas and Paige Harding, all finished up a leadership conference that was with NEA, and they're going to be sharing some of those great ideas and bringing them back to all of our reps and sharing all that great information. It's one of those great things about education, as you all know, about being able to share ideas about what's happening in the world of education, but also teachers learn from teachers. We all learn from one another. In February, We had 5 members that went to an OEA Advocacy and Organizing Institute, so that they're going to be trained on so many different topics to, again, be able to share that knowledge with everybody. And again, that's what educators do. We share, somebody goes, and then we bring it all back to the table. Same things that happen in our great buildings. You know, one person learns it and everybody shares it. So those are the big things that are happening with GJEA. Thanks a lot for your time.
Stand for it. Thanks. I don't see Mal Miller here. Is there anyone else from OPSI Local 399? Jerry's saying no. Okay, so then we've got Jerry Moore here from OPSI Local 249. Thanks, Jerry.
Greetings from the Transportation Garage. It has been said that all great change is preceded by chaos. If that is in fact true, then we have great things ahead for us. So we are still currently without a leader, and it's also been said if that goes on too much longer, a lot of us are going to start to believe we don't really need one. But sounds like next week we have some interviews, and we're going to hopefully get some really good candidates, and we're going to get somebody back in there, and we're going to get going again. So I do want to call out our Assistant Transportation Director, Tracy May, because she's kept us going. And while she's not a member of my local union, I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that she is putting in some extremely long days, because she's covering mornings all the way through the evening shift on a lot of days. So she's putting in some 12-hour days. So thank her for that. And we've also come up with another plan jointly where we have some of our senior drivers that have been around a while, that on days where we have availability, which doesn't always happen, but we have extra drivers on a particular day, we've brought them into the office, and their experience and has allowed them to come in and fill in and do some things for us. And it's kind of worked out for them too, because they're gaining experience in how the office works, and as Tracy likes to say, we're trying to fill the bench with teaching them how the office works and some things like that. We did accept delivery of 2 new school buses this week, and they are going to go right into service. They are badly needed, and you keep them coming. We currently have only 2 contracted routes that are not filled, and while that sounds very good on the surface, we do have a couple drivers that are off on some long-term medical issues. So most of the subs that we have are in play every day and are being asked to fill a route. We are on occasion still splitting routes on a daily basis, so it does cause some minor delays, but for the most part, we've not had any real issues, and we're getting through it. So hopefully this time next month when I come back, we'll be talking about a new transportation director and good things. So that's what I have for this month. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Sherry. Next from OPSI Local 299, I think we've got Deb Wilson here. Hi, Deb.
Well, good evening. I'm Deb Wilson, and I am from Middle School East. I work with intervention specialists Carrie, Rick, and Morgan Richards, and we are in the FSS unit. There is really a lot of exciting things happening at East. We see big equipment, we see a lot of dirt, and we hear a lot of beeping. So there's a lot of preparation going on for our new wing. Can't wait. So inside, it's also just as exciting. We started the Ron Clark Academy's House Point system. It's a lot to say. When I first heard about it, I was a little apprehensive. I wasn't quite sure how our students would make a connection to understand what the whole thing is all about. And prior to COVID, we used to have students, the general population of students, like take our kids under their wing and, you know, help them in the classroom. And we didn't have that for the last year and a half. I really struggled with that, and it bothered me greatly. So once we started the house points, I thought, well, maybe something great will happen. So first day, our students went to their different houses and they were able to learn their house hand sign. Day 2, they learned their chant. And day 3, our students were walking in their house and their peers were saying hi and using their name. Day 4, hallways, hi, hi, hi. It's getting our students really a lot more comfortable. So the main thing I want to stress about this is that, one, I no longer have any apprehension, but it definitely has brought back the personal connection between the general population of students and our students. I could go on and on and on. The other thing that has also happened that's kind of cool, Morgan Richards is the softball coach for all 3 middle schools. And she was telling me that after everybody got settled and, everybody knew who was who, the East and West girls immediately, what house are you in? What house are you in? I'm in that house. And there is a huge automatic connection that they already have a team. So, and their friendships, immediately. Sometimes that's hard, I think, in middle school because you're kind of your own building, and even though eventually you get to the high school, it's really, really cool. I really hope that there is something similar at the high school, mainly because our current 8th graders, because we started it in the middle of the year, they're only going to get a few months of this, and they really need more connection. It gives everyone a true sense of working together, and it's something that our students can take into their personal and their future professional lives. So that's it. Thank you.
Thanks so much for being here. Thank you to all of our staff who are here tonight. I know it makes for quite a long day for all of you, but we appreciate the opportunity to hear directly from you, so thank you. Students too. I know it's a long day for you too. I should have said this at the beginning, but if there are any students that are here tonight for government credit class at the end of the meeting, we actually have, before we adjourn the meeting, we have an executive session that's on the agenda tonight, but before we go into executive session, if you want to come up, I can sign your paper for class. So I should have said that at the beginning. We are on board reports, and first report out that we have is from Mrs. Mooring from Finance and Facilities Committee.
We had our meeting on Tuesday, March 14th, and we covered a lot of very important information. As always, we got a construction update from Mark Ogden, who is our board rep from Turner Construction, and we follow that with a financial report of where we are with spending and within the budgets of the different projects, because I think we have 6 different projects, maybe more, going at the same time. So it's a good way for us to keep track of all of that. And then we did a review of the year-to-date financials through February, the end of February, and Mr. Gooding will be reporting on that later in this meeting. And then we had 4 really important pieces in our educational part of our committee meeting. Mrs. Wigging did an amazing job of reviewing our special education program and how the resources we have and how we execute those resources across the district to meet the needs of our special education students. We followed that with a couple, or I think 3 additional tax year 22 evaluation complaint reviews. This is through the Board of Revision, and we will be voting on those later tonight. Thirdly, we had a presentation by our treasurer on how the process that is being taken within the district to prepare our next fiscal year budget, which then also creates the base that the 5-year forecast is built from. So that was a good conversation as well. And we did have some questions about staffing, and I just want to take a moment tonight to frame why those questions were raised from board members. And our budget is 82% basically of personnel services. So the majority of our expenses are personnel related. And if you're listening to the news, you know that there's turmoil economically, right? We've had recessions predicted and then pulled back. We've had all kinds of monetary activity in the last week or so. So there's these pressures from the global economic perspective. We also, on our current 5-year forecast, have negative spending starting next fiscal year, which was planned, right? Because that's how we roll. We got a pot of money that we know is not inflation adjusted, but our expenses are affected by inflation. So we know that's going to happen, but we need to make sure that it's happening at the pace that we anticipated. And quite frankly, right now, there are, I think, 3 pieces of legislation occurring at the State House level that could drastically impact the funding that we have available to pay our expenses. So as a board member, I think I'm very nervous about all of those things coming together and how it affects our short-term and long-range financial planning. So I think that's where the genesis for the questions came from, and it's not about desire to cut, it is about how we plan for the future. And so just that is the scope that's in my head, and I think probably all of ours, because we are charged with the financial future of the district. So I just wanted to share that piece. And our last piece of that meeting was talking about a resolution that is also on tonight's agenda, expressing support to fulfill Ohio's constitutional mandate to fund a thorough and efficient public school system. And we can talk about that later when that comes up on the agenda item, but it was a great conversation. And if there's any part of the Finance and Facilities Committee meeting that you'd like to hear, it is available online, and so you can observe the conversation. That's all.
Mrs. Mooring, that was a great lead-in, I think, because if it's okay with everyone, I was going to talk about the resolutions in the legislative update so that we don't have to listen to me repeat some of the conversations that we've had in the past about the pending legislation. But the couple things that I just want to say first, so we are on to the legislative update. But I think since we met last month, I don't think there are any new pieces of legislation that have been, well, there are, but none that that we're ready to start talking about yet at this meeting. But I know that all of us as board members have been following very closely what's been going on in the legislature. The budget bill is in committee hearings along with several other pieces of legislation that, as Mrs. Mooring just described, depending on how those things wind their way through and what ends up getting passed, those pieces of legislation could have quite an impact on Gehanna and all other public school districts. So I know all of us have been, as we can, actually going to the State House to sit in on hearings, watching those hearings on the Ohio Channel's website. Thankfully, the legislature now live streams all of their committee hearings. So if anyone ever wants to watch what is going on at the State House, you can watch all of those hearings on the Ohio Channel website. There is also our professional association, the Ohio State School Board Association, has a state legislative conference that is next Tuesday. I think all of us are going. I keep asking people who I know who have been in public education for longer than me, is this normal? Is this how it always is? And the answer that I continually get back is, no, this is not typical. This is not normal, that there is this much that is going on at the State House that would have such an incredible impact on public education. At the state legislative conference next Tuesday, scheduled to speak are the governor, the Speaker of the House, and the Senate president. I don't remember in a time that I've served on school board that we have had those speakers at our state legislative conference. So I think that just makes clear what an unusual period that we are in right now. To that end, there are 2 resolutions that are on tonight's agenda that I just want to talk about briefly as part of the legislative update. So one of those resolutions is the resolution that Mrs. Mooring just mentioned. It is a proposed resolution expressing the support of this board to fulfill Ohio's constitutional mandate to fund a thorough and efficient public school system. After I read the governor's proposed executive budget, and then as we have all been following testimony and hearings of that state budget, and then following both the House and the Senate introduction of their priority legislation for this General Assembly, including watching lots of committee testimony, we started thinking about how can Gahanna make sure that the legislature understands exactly how any of those things might impact us. So passing a resolution like the one that's on tonight's agenda is one vehicle for us to be able to communicate with the governor and the legislature about how any of these things impact Gahanna schools. The resolution urges both the legislature and the governor to fulfill all of our constitutional mandate, which is to fund a thorough and efficient public school system in this state. I'm just going to give a little bit of history. So in 1997, that is when the Ohio Supreme Court issued the first in a series of court rulings that found that the way that Ohio was funding public schools did not meet that constitutional mandate. There have been many different funding formulas over the years, which really means that for public schools, we have not really had any ability to predict what our local tax needs are in order to make up the difference between what the state is providing and what is actually needed. And a lot of those formulas over the years were actually based on a notion called residual budgeting from the state, which is essentially the state is required to pass a balanced budget, and the way that residual budgeting works is that they fund all of the things, and then whatever is left over is essentially what will go to public schools, divided up in some way according to whatever formula is in place. What residual budgeting doesn't do is actually take into account what is needed in order to provide a thorough and efficient education to every single student. So about 5 years ago, a bipartisan pair of legislators, former Speaker of the House and former Supreme Court Justice Bob Cupp, and State Representative John Patterson, who is a retired teacher, formed a work group of superintendents and treasurers from around Ohio, along with several other experts in school finance, and they developed what is called the Fair School Funding Plan. This is a funding model that is an attempt to actually determine the cost of providing a thorough and efficient education to every single student in Ohio. At the time that plan was, and I am really glossing over this, if you want more information, there's more information that's available, but I just want to give this overview for some context. So at the time that the plan was presented to the legislature, There were still a couple critical components that required further study, particularly the costs associated with students who have special needs, English language learning, and students who are economically disadvantaged. In the last biennium budget, pieces of the Fair School funding plan were implemented, not the entirety of the plan, but several pieces of the plan were implemented, and there was a promise made to fully phase in the plan over the next 6 years, 3 biennium budgets. A budget lasts 2 years. In the meantime, though, the makeup and the leadership of the legislature has changed. And as I said at the beginning of this, there have been several pieces of new legislation introduced this General Assembly that would have a significant impact on the implementation of the Fair School Funding Plan. So the resolution that is on our agenda for consideration tonight describes some of that history, and it also states that we as a board strongly urge the governor and legislature to keep their promise to continue moving toward full implementation of the Fair School Funding Plan. And that resolution also states our opposition to some of that legislation that would undercut that funding model, specifically House Bill 1, House Bill 11, and Senate Bill 11. So we can have further discussion about that resolution when we get to it, if there are questions. But I just wanted to give that overview as part of the legislative update. And then there is a second resolution that's on our agenda for tonight, which is unrelated to things going on in the legislature, but is related to what our professional organization has laid out as their legislative platform. So there is we belong to an association called the Ohio School Board Association. That school board association is comprised of school board members from all public schools all across the state of Ohio. That association has staff that is in place to lobby on behalf of public school districts in the state of Ohio. And the way that those people know how and on what issues to lobby is through a legislative platform that is built by the members of the school board association. There's a process in place for making changes to that legislative platform, and one of the resolutions that is on our agenda tonight is recommending a change to our OSBA legislative platform. This is the process that we have to make those changes, is that if local school boards have proposed things that they want to do, we pass a resolution. That resolution would go to the statewide OSBA Legislative Platform Committee for review this summer. If that platform committee agrees, then the proposal goes to the full group of delegates, which is all a school board member from every single school district. And then that change goes up for a vote. And I think any proposed changes have to pass by a vote of 3/4 of the delegates that are present at the meeting. So the resolution that's on our agenda tonight is a recommendation. There is a part of the legislative platform that is named the racism/equity plank. The recommendation in that resolution is to expand that platform to include all protected classes that we list in our own district policy and that most school boards list in their own policies. So that's the second resolution that's on the agenda tonight. And then the last thing that I'll say as part of the legislative update is that the voucher lawsuit steering committee had a meeting on Wednesday. I don't really have an update because, as I mentioned before, the lawsuit is still in the discovery phase. It will likely be there for the rest of this year, so there's not much to say. I just wanted to mention that I want to make sure that I'm giving regular updates from that steering committee. All that I have is a legislative update. So I am going to turn it over to Mr. Manley for a report out from Eastland Fairfield.
Neil.
I want to start seeing what's going on. Well, now it's working. All right, thank you. Oh yeah, that's a lot better. Thank you. You're such a professional, Ron. All right, so with bioscience program, I'm wanting to just start by recognizing 3 of our students that won the capstone projects. That there's the top 3 projects that were selected, and all 3 were Gehanna Lincoln. First place was Frankie Nuss, second place Aiden Watts, and third place was Stella Bradford. And these students were, the capstone is, the compilation of the 2 years of the bioscience program, and it's research, experiment-based curriculum, educating students in the areas of bioengineering, microbiology, molecular biology, and other related fields. I'm not going to try to say the titles of their projects. But this was the 10th year that Eastland Fairfield celebrated for doing the capstone projects, and they all 3 got scholarships awarded by the Gehanna Rotary Club. So thank you for that support. And at our meeting, we had a presentation from the pre-nursing, and that was really wonderful to hear a firsthand account of a student. And they have 5 labs at the Fairfield campus, so she shared her experience, challenges, the skills she's using every day from her education, and she participated in the accelerated program, which gets students back into the workforce a little bit faster and helps them. They can try different pathways at an earlier opportunity. And she was so grateful and excited that she met the challenge. And, we heard from one of the instructors as well, talking about the success of the program, the camaraderie, the bonds that are met, and, the open pathways through partnering. So, very rewarding, and proud parents were there as well. So it was really nice to see. We heard about the firefighting class enrollment. I was in the fire department, so that's of special interest to me. But just hearing that, it's a brand new program, and the students are extremely engaged and focused in. They had a presentation. Firefighters are coming, and, they're making connections and hearing about the challenges, and, really excited about the enrollment numbers are really positive for a new program. So that bodes well for the future. Just a couple more things moving right along. In April, we're going to start seeing new courses of study that they've experimented with. They took a lot of student input as far as their interests and envisioning future possibilities. They're discussing, the adjusted growth, we're going to see as well as far as making room for more students and, lab capacity, et cetera. So, those are growing pains, but we're excited about that. And we're Eastland Fairfield for March, and, that is Women's History Month. They were soliciting submissions of success stories, and they're posting, and they've been posting on social media stories, month-long series highlighting the accomplishments and choices of female students moving into traditionally male-dominated fields. So I think that that's thrilling and, exciting as well, walking into the new territory. Lastly, Congressman Troy Balderson and a few of his staff members visited Eastland Fairfield, Eastland Career Center. And the culinary, pre-engineering, and welding students had the opportunity to talk to the congressman, share their experience about why they chose Eastland Fairfield, tell their story, and to lead them through a tour of the engineering technologies building. So exciting times happening. Lastly, I said that was last, but there's more. Summer camp summer camp registration is open, so I'm excited to talk about just telling people again, like I said last year, it's open to middle schoolers, and what better way to spend your summer and exploring new opportunities. All that's on their website, and thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Mr. Manley. Next, I think we have a report from Gahanna Jefferson Education Foundation from Mrs. Coates.
Thank you. So the gala was hugely successful. A lot of us were there. Over 280 people attended. So it was sold out a month before the actual gala. So GJEF, rightly so, is calling it the hottest ticket in town. We appreciate all those who participated in the online silent auction, as it made a record amount. So that was amazing. And Trisha and Diana will be here at the April board meeting to share the actual fundraising amounts and the grants of excellence. They have a busy spring. Yesterday was the very successful summer job fair that all students were able to participate in during their lunch break. There were over 20 businesses that attended, and this job fair was in partnership with the Gahanna Chamber of Commerce, so we really appreciate the Chamber partnering with us on that. Also, their What's Next Career Expo is Tuesday, April 11th, and this is for all seniors who do not yet have a plan for what they will be doing after high school graduation. They are partnering with businesses in healthcare, construction, banking, just to name a few. Anyone here and listening, please contact GJEF if you are a business that is interested in participating. It's not too late. And then lastly, April 27th is the Job Shadow Day for all of our 8th graders. They are looking for local businesses that are willing to host groups of 8th grade students at their workplace and to speak about careers that are available. So let us know if your business is interested in doing that as well. That's it. Thank you.
We are on the public participation section of the agenda, and I actually do not have any slips tonight. Okay. So we'll move on to adoption of the agenda. Are there any recommended changes to tonight's agenda? Okay, if not, is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Mooring. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Coates. Any discussion? Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Mooring? Yes. Mrs. Coates?
Yes.
Mrs. Horn?
Yes.
Mr. Manley?
Yes.
Mrs. Pickle-Antonio?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. We are on to the superintendent's report. I will turn it over to you, Dr. Deagle.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the board. It's wonderful to be back together again this evening. You all passed a resolution, I have been told, last March to recognize music every March in our district. So I would like to take an opportunity to recognize, in particular, some of our high school programs. They've had a busy past few weeks with OMEA competition. So first, from our band, our freshman band received straight ones in Class C at OMEA. Our blue band received straight ones in Class B, and our gold band received straight ones in Class AA. This is very interesting because there's a sight reading component to this competition. And if you think back the last few years, in 2020 our schools were shut down just before the district contest. In 2021, ensembles could only participate virtually. In 2022, OMEA did not include sight reading because of the ventilation and some other health concerns with COVID, particularly still around us. And so to have a superior rating in sight reading after all of those years of not having that experience is pretty exceptional. Mr. Sibiriak and his team are definitely looking forward to state OMEAs on April 28th and 29th. Vocal music also have many accolades. The chorale, the a cappella choir, the women's ensemble, and freshman girls choirs all received superior ratings and qualified for the state level competition in April that's going to be hosted right here at Lincoln High School and also at Middle School West. It's going to be spread between the two. And the freshman boys rating was excellent, so we're so proud of them. The a cappella and the chorale will be presenting a preview concert. I see you nodding your head. This Sunday at 3 o'clock at the Stony Brook United Methodist Church on Cherry Bottom Road. So this is going to give our families an opportunity to hear the 9 selections that our students are going to be singing in New York City, as well as give our students a test run of the entire show before they sing at St. Patrick's Cathedral and St. John Divine. So that New York City trip takes place over, is it next week? It's the week before spring break. So Mr. Lehman and others are very excited about that trip. I can't wait to hear about it. Our orchestra, I just saw Mr. Dangle actually downstairs at our family preschool open house, but Mr. Dangle reported to me that the OMEA state orchestra ratings were equally strong. Freshman orchestra had a superior 1, straight 1s from the judges. Symphony Orchestra 1 had a superior 1, and Symphony Orchestra 2, excellent 2. Chamber Orchestra, superior 1, straight 1s from the judges. So it's just amazing if you sit back and you look at the students who were here this evening, the students I just shared with you, and all of the things that we accomplish in our wonderful schools. I'm just so proud. And I would like to take a moment to also highlight our speech and debate team, because I'm very proud of speech and debate team members who qualified for states in the last few weeks. They had a very strong performance against 86 other schools at states. Our students qualified in public forum debate, program oral interpretation, original oratory, congressional debate, both House and Senate, so they will be helping in your legislative platforms. Informative speaking, and the Lincoln-Douglas debate. And I've learned a lot more. I didn't have this growing up, and we didn't have this in the school I was involved in. So I've learned it requires a lot of preparing, studying 2 sides of an issue, and it speaks to a student's ability to really pivot, think on their feet. And what I find to be the most impactful for their future is that they can take others' perspectives. And I just think that's very valuable for a lot of reasons. So congratulations to our speech and debate students as well. Very happy to share with you that we have selected a strategic planning firm. It is an Ohio-based company called Rice Consulting. It is the firm that Eastland Fairfield also used, and we're very pleased with the strategic plan that came from that work. We will begin in June. Jill and I will meet with Rice Consulting just to start to lay out our plan. But in June, we will begin by seeking input from our community and what their hopes and dreams are for our school and for our district's future. We hope that this will conclude by December of 2023 with either a new or a renewed mission and vision. It could be that our mission and vision is standing the test of time. But either way, we will have new action steps to drive our work for the next 3 to 5 years. This is incredibly important to me as your leader of the district, so that I can speak with authority on what the wishes of our community are as we move forward. And I know it's also going to impact your world, Mr. Gooding, with budgeting. And last, I just want to show my appreciation for our Chamber of Commerce here in Gahanna. They invited me to their board meeting, and I had a wonderful opportunity to sit with them, share a little bit about my vision for the district, hear what theirs is. And they also shared with me a very strong commitment to our district and our students, and particularly in the area of workforce development and internships and mentoring for our youth. So I came away from that meeting feeling as if we have a very strong partner with our Chamber of Commerce. So I'm very appreciative. And that is all I have this evening. Thanks for the time.
Dr. Deagle. Next, we are going to hear a report from our treasurer, Mr. Gooding.
Thank you. I'm just making sure with the double screens that I don't have too many things going on here. As Mrs. Mooring said, we had a great Finance Facilities Committee meeting on Tuesday night. I will not go through everything that we did in the meeting, but you're more than welcome to go back and watch the meeting online and follow up with any questions you have. So I'll keep it high level from that presentation. We talked about some activity for the month in the general fund. We received just under $13.3 million in revenue, while we spent just under $8.4 million. On our PI fund, we received just under $880,000. We spent $177,000 for the month. On the construction fund, we received just under $67,000 in interest earnings, which is wonderful news, and we spent just a little over $3 million for the month. So those are some great activity that's going on. On the general fund side, we talked about our year-to-date variances, and I'm extremely pleased. This is the information we want to report. Our revenue is up at this point versus what was expected by 0.86%. We'll take it. So we want revenue up and expenses down. So revenue is up by 0.86%. The expenses are under estimates by 1.12%. That delta is our cash balance is 1.5 million versus where we anticipate it being. So everything is exactly in line with what our hopes are. So we're doing great at that point. The other piece that we have are the items for your consideration this evening. We have $373,301 in appropriation adjustments. We have food service fund for food and supplies for meals through the end of the year. We have a public school support fund for 6th grade COSI trip at Middle School East. We have student managed activity fund for the high school beekeeping club. And we have an E-rate reimbursement, which is a miscellaneous federal grant that we have for E-rate as well. We do have 2 items on for then and now. This is just a statutory thing that we need to do, that these are services that were obligated or provided prior to a purchase order being issued. So we're certifying that the funds were available when the purchase was made, and we're certifying that they're available now, and that's the then and now piece. As always, we're extremely appreciative for all of the donations that our community has bestowed upon us. We have $8,524.10 in donations that we're recognizing this evening. Resolution of amounts and rates is determined by the Budget Commission from the county. We filed our tax budget in January, which is driven by the 5-year forecast. We also provide them information on our debt service payments for the upcoming fiscal year. So once that's filed, they come back with the rates that we have, so that the county can assess our taxes for collection beginning in July for next fiscal year. So we're just approving the rates that they've given to us. Finally, under my items here, we have fixed asset disposal. There are 5 items on the fixed asset disposal for Columbus Academy that we have to go through, and the board has to approve the disposal of those assets before we can get rid of them, and then we'll file that. The other item that you will see below that Mrs. Mooring was talking about, we do have 3 additional border revision complaints that we'll have on there. We talked about those Tuesday as well. This is a new process as a result of House Bill 126. In the past, we just handled those administratively. Now that there is a notification process to the business owners, and these are business properties, and it is all about protecting our tax base and our tax dollars to ensure that those properties are being assessed at the correct rate. And this is just the formality to go through that. So once this is done, then we'll file that with the Board of Revisions and follow that process. Any questions?
Thanks, Mr. Gooding.
You're welcome.
So we are on the financial business items that Mr. Gooding just described. Unless there's an objection, is there a motion to approve item number 7 under letter H, which is items H1 through H6? Thanks, Mrs. Coates. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Mooring. Any additional discussion about these items? Okay, Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Coates?
Yes.
Mrs. Horn?
Yes.
Mr. Manley?
Yes.
Mrs. Pickle-Antonio?
Yes.
Mrs. Mooring?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. I am going to turn it over to our Assistant Superintendent, Mrs. Elliott.
Thank you. So a few things to highlight this evening. I wanted to let the board know that we have been going through a federal programs on-site review with the Ohio Department of Education. It's been a very rigorous process that's been taking place over the last 3 weeks. Today, I spent the entire day with four staff members from the Ohio Department of Education, so that was a lot of fun. We have been uploading documents, talking through our programming. There was also a parent interview portion of our day today, so it was great to have some parents speak with Daphne Reese from Ohio Department of Education from Goshen Lane, Rural Manor, and Middle School West. They also did building level visits and met with all of our principals, so that was excellent. Very positive feedback from those visits. At the end, we had an exit conference. Tracy and Scott were with us as well, and very positive remarks from the Ohio Department of Education. Praised us for thinking strategically about our core programs that are available to all students, and then those intentional extra supports that we have in place at all of our title buildings. So we were very pleased about that. They also gave high regards to our very organized fiscal documents. So that was fantastic feedback as well. We just have a few more things to upload, and then we should have that process wrapped up before we jump into another one. I did want to speak on our Gahanna Forum that we had last night. We had our community event called the Gahanna Forum Supporting Our Youth, where members of our district team came together with the mayor and the chief of police to talk with stakeholders about the challenges our youth are experiencing, and really how it's not just on the schools, it's not just on the families, it's not just on the city, it's really about all of us coming together to own the role of helping to grow and support our students. We appreciate having each of you at the event last night with us, and we were joined by, I think it was nearly 60 audience members. So that was nice. As you know, we started by sharing some national data. We also shared our local panorama data. We also talked about discipline data in the district, and then talked about some of the supports we have in place and some of our future plans to continue that support. So I wanted to highlight just a couple of those this evening with regard to the things we're working on putting in place for next year, and definitely things that we've gotten some questions about. So we're finding our PBIS systems is something that we are going to be working on. PBIS is a part of the MTSS, or the multi-tiered systems of support framework that we have in place, and it's PBIS is required to be in all of our buildings, so it is currently in existence. MTSS has two sides. It's got the academic side and the behavior side, and so the PBIS piece falls in place on the behavior side, but both sides have a tiered approach to providing supports. So tier one is like the core instruction or the core programming that is for all students have access to, and then as you go up the tiers, there's more targeted and intensive type of supports, again both on the academic and behavioral side. So PBIS supports that on the behavioral side. Some of the requirements of PBIS include defining and teaching behavioral expectations, recognition systems, consequence systems, engagement with families. And so part of our work next year is, I mentioned we have it in place in all of our buildings, but we really need to refine and really need to enhance those systems and do it in kind of a cohesive, consistent manner. So Lisa Kelly's been leading that work with some of our assistant principals, and there's actually an item on the agenda tonight for some staff members that are also part of that team to help work on that training piece for the rest of the staff for next year. I also talked last night a little bit about our plans for implementing restorative practices in the district. So I'm just going to highlight a few of the things I talked about last night. Restorative practices are directly connected to the PBIS work as well. And, we kind of like to describe it as it's really a way of being. It's a way of thinking. And it's all based on a foundation of caring and collaboration and building strong relationships. So it is important to know it doesn't mean that the expectations go away, but we really will work with staff to hold students to a higher standard by giving them the support they need and the skills they need to navigate different situations and be responsible and be productive in their school environments and the community. There are proactive and responsive pieces to restorative practices, and so in the proactive side, in the classroom, in our schools, it's very direct, very consistent language to be used with our students, supporting them with strategies that help to deal with conflict as it arises. On the responsive side, it is about holding students accountable by having them work with those that have been directly or indirectly impacted by their decisions and their behavior to really make sure that it's a process that supports reflection, learning, and healing. So we have been studying that as an administrative team this year. Some buildings have been dabbling since that training, but next year we'll be implementing plans to train all staff and get that going. And actually in our ODE audit review today, one of the ODE members was a train the trainer for the restorative practices company we've been learning from, and so he had really great things to say about implementation he's been a part of, so that was really nice to talk with him about. I also wanted to just share that Spread the Word is coming up. That campaign it's a time for us to recognize and celebrate students of all abilities. We do this every year. The theme this year is inclusion. It takes all of us, and then the U.S. in inclusion is capitalized to be a signal for us. The shirt was designed by Senior Quinn Smith and produced by our DECA program. And then those sales benefited our ESS program. So just a great example of all of our programs and students working together. So if you have one of those shirts, we welcome you to wear that on March 22nd to support that. And before I share agenda items, we have the high school workforce development showcase that I talked about at the work session. That's tomorrow. So we are excited for that. The economic development members from the city were invited, included, so we hope to see them joining us for that at the high school. I just have one item in the educational pupil programs and services section that's before you this evening, and then a few from the human resources section. But tonight in the educational pupil and program services section, it's really just some additional overnight and extended trips for our different teams and clubs. So the track and field team that was recognized tonight, they'll be traveling, DECA underwater robotics, and our cheer team for a camp. Do you want me to hold on the human resources? Come back
Well,
to
yeah,
you?
it looks like
Okay.
we have to vote separately, so
Yep.
I'll come back to you, Jill. Thank you. There is just, as Mrs. Elliott mentioned, just one item under pupil programs and services. So is there a motion to approve item number I2, which is overnight field trips?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Horn. Is there a second? Thanks, Mr. Manley. Any discussion? Mr. Gooding, can you, oh, go ahead, Mrs. Mooring, sorry.
To your report out on last night, I think one of the things that I kept reflecting on as I walked home and thought about it is, you know, the reminder that our students' brains aren't fully developed until age 26. And so coming from a finance, you know, background, and I'm sure all of the teachers know that and all of the people in our district, but for the people that don't work in this industry, to have that reminder, right, that we can't have expectations of rational thinking and decision making for a sixth grader because they're not fully developed, right? They don't have that that rational thinking yet, and so it just, as one of the things from last night, that just really kept coming back into my head, like, that needs to be reminded to people more and more, right? Like, these children are not fully developed, and we have amazing staff members that know how to work with those kids that are in process, right? And so I appreciated all of the discussion last night, and I thought it was very good. So I hope a lot of people watch it on the tape, right, to really spread the knowledge that was provided last night.
I have just one more thing to say that I forgot to mention, that part of last night's program included a panel where we had administrators from, 2 administrators from the elementary level, all of our middle school principals, as well as Jessica from the high school, there to help field questions from the audience. So it was nice to be able to give, you know, the building perspective as well.
I just want to say a big thank you, Jill, Tracy, Lisa Kelly, the administrators that were there. I see people out here in our audience that were present that are here again tonight, and it just, the collaboration with the city. I was very proud to not only be a school board member, but I was proud to be a member of our Gahanna Jefferson district. And so, it's just a lot of work that you all did for our community after a long day, and this has been a long week for all of you, and I just want to tell you how much I appreciate it, and all of you that were there last night that are here again tonight, thank you.
Well, there haven't been any additional discussion? Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Horn? Yes. Mr. Manley?
Yes.
Mrs. Pickle Antonio?
Yes.
Mrs. Mooring?
Yes.
Mrs. Coates?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. I will turn it back to you, Mrs. Elliott.
Thank you. So our HR department continues to be very busy. We have Adam Kunkel, our HR coordinator, and Shay Reed, our director, in the audience tonight. They have before us 9 certified staff members, and Director Shay Reed shared with us in Cabinet this week that she's very hopeful we'll have our hiring of our current positions wrapped up by the end of March, so that's a celebration. But tonight there are 9 on the agenda. We also have substitutes for several classified positions, additional hours for staff for things like dyslexia training, which is a required 18 hours. We've been able to get a lot of that in during the school day and year, but some additional time for staff for that required training, Chinese enrichment, some PBIS training, so lots of things on there, journey to learning coordinators, and then we typically have staff moving on from us for one reason or another that have had a huge impact, of course. So just a few to mention. Cindy Maciosi has been our theater director and performing arts teacher. I had her when I was in high school. Edna Wright, one of our school nurses that's been with us for quite some time, as well as Shane Hall, that was our server systems coordinator, has also been with us for many, many years. So just wanted to highlight those individuals.
Mrs. Elliott, I think the first item for action under Human Resources, we are required by law to open for public discussion whenever we take an action where somebody is retiring and the district is hiring that individual back to work in the district. So I just want to open it up. If there is anyone in the audience who has anything that they would like to say on the issue of the re-employment of Brad Barboza during his STR service retirement. And I would just say, as the mom of 3 kids now who have had Mr. Barboza as a principal, I am happy to see that he will be coming back to work in the district as middle school East principal. But if there is anyone in the audience, now would be your time. Okay, I will close the period of public discussion. Do I need to do anything else? Okay. There are a couple items that are for informational purposes only, and then if we go down to item number 26, unless there's an objection to taking the items together, is there a motion to approve items J3 through J25?
Make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Manley. Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you, Mrs. Mooring. Any additional discussion about those items? Go ahead, Mrs. Horn.
I have to say I was shocked to see Cindy Maciosi's retirement, but I mean she has done such a world of difference for our students over, I don't know how many years she's been here, over 30 maybe, I don't know, but I mean I know going to see the plays for the last 20 plus years, so we wish her well, but we'll be very sad that she is moving on, but congratulations to her and thank you for all your service.
Will Newsies be her last?
It will, but I have it on good authority that we know where to find her after she takes a short time out, so I'm happy about that.
Any additional discussion? Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Manley? Yes. Mrs. Pickle Antonio?
Yes.
Mrs. Mooring? Yes. Mrs. Coates?
Yes.
Mrs. Horn? Yes. Motion carried.
Thank you. I am going to turn it over to our Chief Operating Officer, Mr. Hetzel.
Good evening, everyone. I thought I would lead tonight
with an item that we're presenting to the board to approve in regard to our secured entries at our elementary schools. And I realized I made a note that I wanted to acknowledge one of our art teachers. I was pleasantly surprised to see Ashley Lawson here because she is a family friend. So she grew up in the area that I did, and so we saw each other before the meeting. So that was pretty neat to see, along with fantastic artwork. The circumstances surrounding the resolution on tonight, I just wanted to give the board an update, and that is we designed 4 secured entries to our elementaries at Jefferson, Chapel Field, Royal Manor, and Goshen Lane. And in doing that, we put the bid packages together, advertised them, and we packaged them in a way that they were offered in 2s or in a combined package. And we had a couple of contractors receive information. We had 1 bid, and that bidder came back for 2 of the 4. And so at that point in time, we worked with Bricker and Eckler, our legal team, along with our architect, to revisit the 1 good bid that we received and talk to that contractor, who happens to be Kirk Design and Construction, who is a local contractor that we've had a good standing history with, and asked them about their second bid, and the response was that they had been waiting for bonding for the second package, but they had everything put together for it. So we reviewed everything, and in evaluating things with Bricker, and based upon the nature of the project, with it being focused on safety and security, that we could invite them to present that information. And what we did was look at the cost estimate for the entire project, which was $1,050,000. Kirk's full proposal came in at $969,000, so it was $80,000 less than the cost estimate. So we hit that parameter. Good standing contractor with the district, local. Due to the nature of the project, we weren't required to make it 100% bond, so we reduced the bond to about 50%, and what you'll see is that 477 number on the resolution. And the way the bonds work is it's basically picking up the difference as you go through stages of the project. And so as we looked at that, we felt confident that that would be acceptable. They also agreed that they could be substantially complete before the start of school, which was critical to us. And then as a result of that, we don't have to rebid the project. And so I think in the spirit of meeting safety and security timelines, cost figures, we feel like that was an acceptable recommendation. Along with that, Middle School West is another project that has a secured entry that we wanted to bid out for that. And that will be handled in a little different way. So I wanted to let everybody know that that's still being prepared for us. So Shore Architects is designing that, and we are looking to fund that through ESSER dollars. So that will be treated under Davis-Bacon, so we would use prevailing wage for that. So that's carved out from these elementary projects. And so we're anticipating that package to come together in early April for you, also with the same timeline. And Shore is in contact with other contractors to complete that work. So that one is coming. Wanted to talk a little bit about an approach to the operations that we're taking. I'm kind of doing a process walk through our different operational units, and it's a total quality management or a Lean Six Sigma approach to evaluating things. And in doing that, it's really about people and understanding. So we want people to feel comfortable and have conversations about what they do and the resources and how they handle their service in their workspace. And we had a good opportunity because of the interaction with the PTO, PTA governing board, that I was able to attend a couple of meetings with them, and they had some questions around food service. So it seemed like the right time to take a walk through that department, and we did, kind of taking the school lunch view on that and walking through that, and identifying kind of a high-level approach to the meal service. framed up through questions from parents and students and the National School Lunch Program that governs how we deliver and how we're funded, along with what our existing practices have been to deliver that. And so we then package that into kind of an informational overview to our PTO, PTA group to kind of explain how things are happening and why, how it interacts with how they purchase meals and the availability of meals and types and concepts that we're using. And all along the way, I thought it was very good just to better, again, understand how the operation works and how food service works, and having those staff members, when you explain something to somebody, sometimes you think about what you're doing. So I think that went very well, and I expect that to be a build out to a more thorough review of the department, probably ongoing into next year, but would also include some data points with an ultimate kind of financial snapshot as well. So we can look at how we attribute performance, what conditions surround the operation to make it perform better or worse than the past, and how we can continue to build a continuous improvement culture, which is kind of the goal. And then kind of in closing, I wanted to reiterate Jerry's comments, his sentiments. I appreciate what he had to say about the transportation department. They've been doing a great job, and Tracy May has stepped up very much. We speak frequently in the morning, early in the morning. The difference is I'm at home at 5:15, she's there. So I really do appreciate what she's doing right now. We have, as Jerry had mentioned, Adam's been working very hard in HR, and we've reviewed candidates and have come up with a list of finalists that we are planning to interview next week. And then wanted to also add that the process walk for next month, I'm hoping, is transportation, because we have been conducting a review of that department as well for the last 6 weeks. And so we want to kind of put some measures and assessment together of the department, so when the new person comes on board, they can have an understanding of what's going on there and what their resources look like, to kind of walk them along through the end of the school year so that they can understand what's going on.
Questions for Mr. Hetzel at all? So did you go back to the group of the PTO, PTA?
And kind of walk through all of that information. But it was a great mechanism to kind of garner feedback on that experience. So it was very good.
It really was, and in fact, I think at each one of our PTO meetings, something has surfaced from our PTO presidents that have caused us to deep dive a little bit, because I'm even thinking of the spring inflatables and what we've done with that. So we're really appreciative of meeting with our group of PTO leaders. They surface quite a lot for us.
You, Mr. Hetzel. There is one item for action under letter K. Is there a motion to approve item number K2? Thanks, Mrs. Horn. Is there a second? Thank you, Mrs. Mooring. Any additional discussion about the approval of the secured entry project?
Chair, we're talking about 4 specific schools, but just in case people that are listening don't realize, they are the only 4 elementary schools that don't have secure entry right now. So this will complete the secure entry process for the elementary, and I think we're all excited to have that done.
Yes, and Madam President, if I might also add, then with West being completed this summer, East is still without the secured entry system that will be in place with the addition that we are working on right now.
Wonderful. Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Pickle Antonio,
Yes.
Mrs. Mooring, Mrs. Coates,
Yes.
Mrs. Horn,
Yes.
Mr. Manley.
Yes.
Motion carried.
We are on letter L, and is there a motion to approve items of general business, L5 through L7? Thank you, Mrs. Coates. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Manley. Any discussion about these items? I think we have touched on a number of them already. Actually, we may have talked about, oh, did I skip? Was I supposed to do, I'm breaking them out, sorry. Okay, so we're doing the bottom half first, I guess, because that's how I read it. So items number 5 through 7, have we talked about, so these are two of the resolutions were the resolutions that I talked about in the legislative update, and then item number 5 is payment in lieu of transportation. Those are our students who attend non-public schools but live in our school district, and we do not have the ability to provide transportation for them, so it's payment in lieu of transportation. We are obligated by the state to provide transportation to any students who live in our school district, regardless of what school they go to. Is there any additional discussion that anyone wants to have about any of those items? You should have been able to see, with the, as far as the resolutions go, you should have been able to see the most recent version of the resolution related to school funding incorporated some of the discussion that we had on Tuesday. I can't remember off the top of my head what that specific discussion was about. I think it was from you, Mrs. Mooring, a suggestion to modify one of the sentences, and I'm forgetting what it was. But that modification was made. Yes. Okay. Yep.
You know, note, we quantified what the effect would be if this legislation passed, and what it does, right? So House Bill 1, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, House Bill 1 is seeking to lower the state income tax, but then adjust property tax rates such that it would actually increase the tax that property owners are paying, but they don't get to vote on it. Like property owners get to vote on their what tax levies that come to them. This is an overt action by the state legislature to increase property taxes without the citizens, property owners being able to vote. So I hope that that piece comes out, right? I don't know that it's one that's being talked about as much as I think it should be. But the other piece that I think is very relevant is that our state has had record revenues for the past, 8 years? And we are sitting on, where is that number?
It's over 5.
We are sitting on a surplus
Billion.
of over $5 billion. So why can't they use, I'll take 15% of that to fund education properly, right? That is just crazy to me. So those are two of the things that I think are in this resolution that it's all very good, but those are two pieces that I wanted to pull out.
Did you want to say something, Mr. Gooding?
I just want to piggyback on that real quick. Because as Daphne was saying, with the rainy day fund, the state has actually maxed it out. They're not legally allowed to put any more money into the rainy day fund because they have maxed that out. And on the property tax piece, yeah, the intent is to lower the state income tax, and there's two ways they're trying to do it. One is reducing the assessed value from 35% to 31.5%. That is about, depending on the intent and how House Bill 920 applies or doesn't apply, we're talking about a difference of annually $7 million a year we lose, or $4 million. It's one of the two. We lose that. The other piece that is being impacted is the homestead and rollback payment. That currently is a 10% credit to the homeowner's tax bill that the state pays for. They are proposing for that to go away. So the revenue to the district doesn't go away, but what that does is shifts that from the state to our property owners. So they would see a significant increase in their property tax, to property tax bills. So those are the pieces that are going on there as they're talking through down at the State House very passionately right now.
That's been on my mind because of the 10%. If my taxes go up 10%, I know from campaigning and talking to people in all areas of Gahanna and our district, people are stretched, and that's even more so today. And that this 10% also includes rural districts, and so that's a statewide, right? Yeah, 10% tax increase. I don't understand why people aren't talking about the rainy day fund. That's a lot of money in there over the limit, because I think the limit, isn't it 3 billion? Yeah, it's, I think 3.14 billion was the limit, but we're at 5. And where is that money? What is it going to be used for? Who's talking about it? And how do we rectify that and put it to use? All right.
Any additional discussion? Okay, Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Coates? Mrs. Horn? Mr. Manley?
Yes.
Mrs. Piccolo Antonio?
Yes.
Mrs. Mooring?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Now we'll move to the top half of the items under general business. Item number 4 is there a motion to approve general business items L1 through L3? Thank you, Mrs. Horn. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Manley. What I started to say before is this is the complaints that Mr. Gooding described briefly in his update from the treasurer, and that we talked about in more detail at Finance and Facility Committee meeting on Tuesday. So is there any additional discussion about these items?
And I should have said this when I
Sure.
talked about
Go
this
ahead, Mr.
earlier.
Gooding.
One of the stipulations with the new law is that we can vote on these in a consent, but we can't include anything else. So I should have called that out, because typically you did exactly what we normally do, and you go to the bottom of the section and that's where we vote in the consent. But because those other items could not count as part of that action, that consent item, I should have called that out. So that's one of the stipulations with those. So my apologies.
Any additional discussion? Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll?
Mrs. Mooring?
Yes.
Mrs. Coates?
Yes.
Mrs. Horn?
Yes.
Mr. Manley?
Yes.
Mrs. Piccolo Antonio?
Yes.
Motion carried.
The last item under letter L, general business of the board, is a first reading of several board policies. And I'm just going to give a real brief overview, because this is a different process for us that we are using this year, and this is the first time that we've had policy updates on an agenda this calendar year. So at our organizational meeting in January, we made a decision that we were going to move the policy committee to be an internal superintendent committee. On that committee are Dr. Deagle and then 2 board members, Mrs. Coates and Mr. Manley. So the 3 of them meet with whoever additional subject matter experts may be needed in order to review recommended policy changes. They spend time going over those policies, making decisions about recommended changes to the full board. And then we also made a decision that in order to give the public the opportunity to digest those policies, provide any input that they may want to provide, and also really to give board members the opportunity to have some time to digest all of those changes, we now do 2 readings of policy changes at 2 different regular board meetings. So we will have these policies on our agenda tonight, and then we will bring them back next month to our regular board meeting for a vote, assuming that there aren't, well, there will be a vote regardless, so that'll be next month. So if there are members of the public who wish to speak during public participation, there are those 2 meetings that they have the opportunity to come and speak about the policies. So as I said, there are a number of policies that are on tonight's agenda. We are not going to spend time tonight going through those recommended changes, but I do want to open it up to board members. If there are questions that you have about any of those recommended changes, you can ask those questions now, and I will defer to Dr. Deagle to answer any of those questions. So are there questions from board members at all? Oh, okay, thank you. These will be back on our agenda next month. And then finally on tonight's agenda, is there a motion to go into executive session pursuant to revised code 121.22G4 for the purpose of preparing for conducting or reviewing negotiations or bargaining sessions with employees? Thank you, Mrs. Horn. Is there a second?
Good.
Thank you, Mr. Manley. Any discussion? As I think I might have said this at the beginning, but just in case, when the board goes into executive session, we will be going into a separate room. That is not a public part of the meeting. When we finish our discussion in executive session, we will be coming back into open public session, but the only board action that we will be taking is a motion to adjourn the meeting. So you're more than welcome to stay and hang out until we come back into public session, but there will be no board action except to adjourn the meeting. So I've got to take a roll call vote, but after we do the roll call vote, if there are students who need government papers signed, then you can come up here and I will sign for you. Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Horn?
Yes.
Mr. Manley?
Yes.
Mrs. Pickle Antonio?
Yes.
Mrs. Mooring? Mrs. Coates?
Yes.
Motion carried.
So it's 8:22 p.m. We'll take a short recess and then the board will go into executive session. Thank you, everybody, for being here with us tonight.